Thank you, Madam Clerk. Welcome today, to April 6th, 2026, Committee of the Whole. Do we have someone who would like to give the invocation this evening? Okay, that takes us on to item 6, approval of the minutes. Any discussion on the minutes? Okay, with that, Madam Clerk, on page 7 of the minutes, I stepped away for the bad text discussion, but it has me as a yes to pass the amendment. Would you mind adjusting that to remove me as absent?
Is that not, if you recuse yourself from voting, then you fall to the,
I didn't actually recuse myself. I stepped away from the dais, so I was absent during that.
and that's on page 7.
Page 7 of the minutes. Yes, please.
I can amend that, yes.
Okay, thank you. That takes us on to item 11A, the first budget amendment. Any discussion on this? We had this at our last meeting. Move some money around for snow and for ease, is that correct? Or onboarding? Madam Clerk?
I'm sorry, I was,
$10 is for ease? For the professional services?
correct,
The
yes.
HR department, okay. Any discussion on that? Takes us on to item 12A, ordinance 26-23, the second budget amendment. Tim, do you want to just give us a quick staff report on that? I know you have a letter in here, but
Yeah, I better print that out before the actual meeting. I don't have the numbers with me right now, but it's basically the utilities system had a lot of projects that weren't approved yet, but were in the works. So during the budget season, we didn't feel comfortable just guessing a number at what our total projects for the year were going to be. So we decided that we should wait until they get approved and then come back and do a budget adjustment. So the professional services budget adjustments are for the projects that have already been approved. Thank you. And then the equipment repair and equipment outlay is for a problem that we didn't see coming. We've got 4 air generators that produce air and pump it into our sewer lagoon system. And they're about 15 to 20 years old. And one of them broke. So during the process of that, we found out it's difficult to find the replacement parts. We found one. It was about $11,000, or locally here we could get it rebuilt for $15,000. So while going through the process to get approved the $11,000 purchase of the one, a second one broke. So now we're at 2 down, and as soon as we got it approved to buy the $11,000 one, it was lost. So we had to change our plans again and rebuild one of them for $15,000, and they found the other one. So we now have both of them working again, but the other 2 are days away from basically the exact same thing, right? They've all got the same amount of hours. So we would like to plan ahead rather than wait for this problem to come. But also we didn't have in the budget for either one of those. So we've actually got both of those motors, but we don't have the money to pay for either one. So that's why this was being pushed through as quickly as it was, because we're already using the parts. So we need some money to pay for them, or we're going to upset a local contractor here that repairs our motors for us, and the only company that can find these new motors for us if we need for the other 2. So our goal is, now that we've got 2 working we're going to take, one rebuilt and one new. We're going to take one of the older ones down and bring it in and see if it can be rebuilt before it catastrophically fails, so that it's cheaper than the $15,000. But this budget adjustment would give us the money to pay for 2 new and 2 rebuilds. And 1 new and 1 rebuild is already, like, we need that money right now. So this would basically give us options for the next 2. So we wouldn't have to come back again and do this again. Because it's, it's 13 days to get it on the agenda, and then this has to go through 2 readings. So it's over a month when we need it. So that's why we had to push this one through. I know it looks ridiculous because we just have one. We've got one on the second reading, and now we've got one on the first reading again. But if we waited just to make it look better, then we would have bills piling up.
Thanks, Tim. Any questions about that from council? Okay,
Who's doing the rebuild?
Aero Services. Yeah. And they do a lot of our work. We don't necessarily want to upset them.
Very good people.
okay. Any other questions? We're moving on to resolution 2026-05. Urging the state legislature to reject proposals for a statewide sales tax. Councilwoman Rolfe, Councilmember Schuster, or Councilmember Santa Claus, who would like to take that? And
I can take that.
please.
So this is modeled off the one that was passed first by the city of Fairbanks and then passed by the city, or the Borough Assembly has passed. They're basically exactly the same. But the governing body, as it's urging the legislature to do it. So it basically says that we don't agree with the legislature enacting a statewide sales tax, that sales tax is something that was left to the municipalities. And aside from that, even if the sales tax sunsetted, the provision that they will continue to collect the tax does not sunset, which means then we have to start paying them to collect our sales tax, and they'll remit it to us at some point in time, which we also don't agree with. So overall, the whole plan by the state is just a terrible idea. So we're urging them to not pass it.
Okay. Any discussion or questions about that? I would like to ask about the sales tax extremely regressive line. Since the city survives off a sales tax, why that language would be added to say that sales tax is extremely
So
regressive?
one of the reasons that they've talked about doing it is that they're trying to find a tax that is even across the board, and that's not what a sales tax is. And that's the reason for that line being there. It is a regressive tax. Every study shows that it hurts the lower income individuals more than it hurts higher income individuals. And so, I mean, that's one of the reasons that it's there, but every study that I've ever seen shows that sales taxes, it doesn't affect every class evenly.
And the state continuing to take our permanent fund, do you feel like that's a better option?
No.
Okay,
But this isn't gonna stop that. Doing a sales tax is it's just another money grab. It's not gonna stop them from continuing to take our PFD. I think the court failed us in that instance, because without them standing up and saying that the language in there actually sets out the formula and how the PFD has to be used, they're just gonna continue to use it however they want, because nobody's gonna hold them accountable.
okay.
I would just add to that.
Go ahead, Jordan.
I think, you can say a sales tax is regressive and still recognize that the city needs it at the present time to operate. I think 2 things can be true at once, as far as, yes, you can say it's regressive, but as of now, the city of North Pole needs it to survive. And so I don't think that language is a problem. I think we can acknowledge that there's a big difference between 5.5 8.5 or 9%. Um, we don't really have another option inside the city. So I think what Sandra was trying to say was also too, that we can recognize that more tax or added tax or not support an additional tax in this, but still recognize that we're not fans of any kind of taxation.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%. I'm not super fond of the state sales tax, but when I went to the luncheon and heard the governor talk about why he was rolling this out, to level out industry and level out what the state takes in every single year, similar to the way the city of North Pole has done, rather than jump on the oil bandwagon and ride that all over the place. It makes more sense than taking a dividend. And then we allow our tourists to help pay for that, just like the city of North Pole has. But, okay. Any further discussion on that? Okay, moving on to request to council. Chief?
Good evening, folks. So what you got in front of you is a purchase request for a patrol car for 2026. The base request is not any different than a regular patrol car. There will be would be a canine cage added to that car, paid for from canine donations. It's kind of a two-part memo. My goal was to make the request, but also provide some additional context for the council, so you can get a kind of a more behind the scenes look of what I'm looking at as far as vehicle data and how I project out the next 5 to 10 years in managing a vehicle fleet. My goal is really two main things, to largely just to have a fleet that's stable, both operationally in the sense that we can respond when we need to and cars are reliable, and then also financially too. I really don't want to see big increases year to year. I recognize stuff increases over time just in general, but I want to spread that out and keep that as stabilized as possible. And so you have in front of you some graphs that I took the data I included in the memo and then put it in a graph form. And just to run through these real quick, there's 3 scenarios. One is, the first one in the order that they're stapled is if cars are not replaced in a regular fashion, if it's kind of piecemealed or not replaced, and ultimately what the fleet looks like if we increase that to an average ODO mileage of between 80 and 100,000 miles across the whole fleet. So with idle hours in, after 5 years, you can see that we end up at roughly 216,000 miles average, average number. So that's the first scenario. I won't belabor this. There's 2 more. The second scenario shows what 1 car per year does. You can see it very dramatically slows that growth. Goes from where we're at now to about half of what it would be if we were not replacing on a consistent replacement schedule. And then scenario 3, you can see, is even further stabilized with an increase only from 101,000 to 116,000. And that is just meant to show you that that's my goal, is to have the fleet stable now and then for the next 10 years, because I know both the repairs will stay stable and our ability to respond to calls stay stable. The last 2 graphs show first what our vehicle fleet looks like now as far as effective mileages. This is odometer plus idle hours. And you can see in that a pretty good distribution between green, orange, and red. There'll always be some cars that are lower mileage, some that are in that mid-range, and some that are driving the mileage up because they have a higher mileage. So when I say I'm looking for an average of 40 to 50, it includes both the baby cars and the really old cars in that total number. And I'm looking for one that has a good distribution across that, because that means it's stable. It's not likely to, have several cars fail all at once, or be getting rid of cars way sooner than I should be and not utilizing their service life. The last graph shows what would happen if we increase the average fleet mileage to 90,000 across the entire fleet. The distribution stays essentially the same, except we lose all of our lower mileage vehicles and we pick up some that are, well, hovering in the range of 300,000 miles. Again, this is theoretical. Vehicles in this range, police vehicles in this range, they wouldn't last this long. So we go from having a good ability to forecast, hey, it's time to roll this car out of active patrol and to put it into a more of a fleet car. We lose that flexibility, and instead we're forced to purchase vehicles as they are dying and failing and breaking. And this is what I've seen at some other agencies locally, where officers are actually having to call tow trucks and get their car picked up because it is a very high mileage car. So I'm trying to maintain a sweet spot in the fleet as far as we're getting good service life, but we're also not letting it go so far that the repair costs begin to skyrocket. You'll notice in the memo itself, I actually broke down in the table on page 20 of your agenda, the percentage of total repairs that go to the vehicle. And unsurprisingly, the higher the vehicle mileage is, with a few rare exceptions, you're going to see more repairs going to that car. If we allow the entire vehicle fleet mileage to increase this much, every single one of those high mileage vehicles is going to be generating those increased repair costs. And I would also caveat that to say, I base these numbers off the last 5 years of repair costs for a relatively stable fleet. I'm not going to make numbers up or pull them out of thin air, but I can tell you, we are not, with a stable fleet, we're not dealing with catastrophic engine failures and front ends going out and other really major repairs. If we let the whole vehicle fleet get to that higher mileage, those are some of the types of repairs we'll start dealing with, and they won't be under warranty. So these numbers are really the bread and butter of what I base my decision making off of if it's time, or this is the replacement schedule we need. You can see we could maintain any mileage. It would still take 2 cars a year. You can see on the graphs, it takes 2 cars a year to keep that stabilized. Do we want that stabilized at a mileage where all the cars are likely to break down and generating way higher repair costs? Or do we want to keep that balanced right in the middle of those two? That's what we've worked to get to for the last 10 years. And that's really my goal, to try to keep us there. So I can talk more about that in the meeting at large, but that's just a quick bird's eye view of why I'm making this request. Again, you notice the 1 car replacement year, we're still growing. Those miles continue to add up. We're just slowing that and stabilizing it. So I'll take any questions if you have any.
Questions from council?
I got a question.
Sure. Councilman Williams.
What is the mileage of the vehicle that's the oldest out there right now that we're looking?
It is unit 335 at 96,000 on the odometer, 195 effective miles. For clarification, fleet vehicles are driven regularly. They're driven when other cars are in for oil changes and getting repairs, and there's other things going on. So they're not just sitting for long periods of time, but he is correct that it is not currently assigned and going home with an officer. When they get to roughly, depending on their condition, roughly 80,000, we start looking at transitioning them into that fleet vehicle mode where they're still being used probably up to, well, really till that tipping point comes where it's no longer worth paying to repair them, but they keep being used as a fleet vehicle pretty much as long as is feasible.
Any other questions? Sure.
So
Through
the-
the chair, Councilman.
Highest mileage vehicle that's assigned to an officer right now is only 54,000 miles.
Any other questions for the chief? Okay. Mr. Glidden brings us on to request to council for the ROV in-service tank inspection proposal. And can we get a 4 or 5 minute brief overview, if you would? Thank you.
Yeah, so the water utility has 2 above-ground water holding tanks that need to be inspected every 5 years or so. So in order to get into the tank, we'd have to shut it down and drain it, and then allow somebody inside of this confined space with a flashlight and camera taking pictures. And then once they were done what they were doing, they'd come out and we would have to sanitize the entire tank, refill it, and then have it tested, have those samples sent out to be certified, and then we'd be able to put that system back online. We've got 2 of those, but currently they have ROV inspections, which remote operated vehicles. So they've got like a submarine basically with a camera on it that they can sterilize and stick it into the tank while it's still being used. So we don't even have to turn it off. We don't have to drain it down, anything. And it'll just make a video of the entire surface of the inside of these tanks. And then we give those to an engineer, and they go through and write us up a report, and then we submit that to DEC. So there's a company that did the Moose Creek tank for us as part of the installation of it. So I contacted them and got a quote for them to do the 2 tanks. They're, I forget which state, but they're not in Alaska. And it's $25,000 for them to do the 2. I contacted 3 companies that are in Alaska that advertise that they do this work. 1 company did not respond. 1 company did respond and with a quote, and the 3rd company responded with that they don't do it anymore. So that's the other quote is for somebody down in Homer for $29,000. I sent both to our attorney for review. He didn't like either contract. So I sent both back. I got a response from both, but only got a fixed contract from the Homer people. So as of right now, my recommendation would be to go with the people out of Homer because their contract was edited to agree with our attorney. But there's not a huge time frame on this. We'd like to get this inspected before the sanitary survey is done in July so that he can have these results for that survey. So we don't have to, it's just the 13-day window to get it on the agenda. That's why if you read my memo, it doesn't have a decision because I hadn't heard back from either companies about their contract yet. So I was trying to give them as much time as possible to get me a response, but I haven't got anything from the 1 company. So if we want to push this off and wait and see what the other company responds, it wouldn't be detrimental.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn.
I also added on the desk there a quote for $13,000. I just did that today. I don't know if you guys saw that. That is for the sanitary survey that we have to do every 3 years. So we have this scheduled for July to happen. So this isn't a bill. This is just a budget estimate of what it's going to cost in July to get this sanitary survey. I just requested it last time I talked to him while we were setting up the process, and I thought you guys would want to see that in reference to the tank inspections, just so you have a total picture of what this DEC report's going to cost.
And you have the funding for the sanitary and professional services, correct? Okay. So it's not something we need to do a budget adjustment for. Go ahead, Councilman Schuster.
The company out of Homer, was that also using the submarine?
Yes, yes.
Okay. What was, do you know kind of historical costs, what it would cost to drain the tanks and do it
Boy,
the other way?
no, I don't. Our system would struggle to keep up without one of those tanks, and it wouldn't be an easy process. It would probably be close to a month before we could get it started back up again.
Councilman Brandt.
So the proposal letter from Cortec, the first company, the one from out of state, it's much more detailed about what they're proposing to do. the one from Vision Subsea, the one from Homer doesn't have a lot of detail as far as, exactly what they're going to be inspecting and, all that kind of stuff. I would be inclined just for that reason to go with Cortec, but their contract, our attorney had a lot of problems with their contract. So if it wouldn't hurt to wait till next meeting, I'd like to wait to hear back from Cortec. It's considerably less expensive, and I think that their proposal is a lot more detailed, but I'm not sure if they're willing to make all the changes to the contract that our attorney recommended.
And
So-
we used them before, so we feel confident that they could do it. The other company, when I sent them out what we wanted, they responded back that they could do the ROV inspections, but they'd have to contract out the engineered report. So that's what the first sentence in their thing is about, K corporate or something.
Right.
Right. So that's probably why there is less detail in their estimate, because they're just running the controls, right? So they probably don't really have a great understanding of what they're looking for.
Right.
But
And
the
that's why it
engineer is
said
going to be there from Wasilla that would be directing the show, I think.
Right. It just sounded from the both of the proposals that Cortec had a lot more experience and that they it just sounded like a much better fit for what we're looking for. But like I said, their contract was had a lot of problems with it, according to our
Right.
attorney. So
They
did
they're-
you hear back from them and they were not willing to change the contract, or you haven't heard back from them yet?
So they did respond, and it wasn't a negative response. They said, okay, we'll pass this along and see what we have to do to. So it sounds like they're trying to make the necessary adjustments, but
Would it hurt to wait till the next meeting
nope,
so we can hear back from them?
I
Would you
think
like
so.
to make that amendment? Okay. With that, let's take a 3-minute break and we'll get started with the council meeting. Thank you. Okay. Good evening, folks. Welcome to the regular meeting of North Pole City Council. Today is April 6th, 2026. Thank you for joining us. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Brandt?
Here.
Mr. Skips?
Here.
Mr. Schuster?
Here.
Mr. Claus?
Here.
Mr. Williams?
Here.
Ms. Rolfe?
Here.
And Mayor Church.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which nation.
Dear Father, soften our minds, soften our hearts. For all living ways are all we seek. Strengthen our lives, inspire our spirits in your love.
Thank you, Councilman Williams, for that invocation. Appreciate that.
Any person wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda needs to sign up on the list located on the public testimony table. Respectful standards of decorum and courtesy should be observed by all speakers. Remarks should be directed to the council as a body rather than any one member of the council or staff. Comments are limited to 5 minutes.
That brings us on to item 4, citizens' comments. Madam Clerk, do we have anybody signed up online who would like to give comments this evening?
I have nobody signed up online.
Is there anyone in the room who would like to give comments this evening? Okay, seeing none, we'll close citizens' comments. That moves us on to action item 5, approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve, please?
Move to approve the agenda for April 6th, 2026.
I'll second. Moved and seconded. Any amendments to the, please, Councilman Brandt.
To move to postpone item 12D, requested council for the ROV in-service tank inspection proposal for 2020-26 to the April 20th meeting.
A second.
Moved and seconded. Any other amendments to the agenda? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
On the agenda as amended, Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Brandt,
Yes.
Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Ms. Rolfe,
Yes.
Mr. Claus,
Yes.
Mayor Church.
Yes.
On the agenda for this evening, Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mr. Claus,
Yes.
Mr. Brandt, Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Ms. Rolfe, and Mayor Church.
Yes. Would anyone like to change their vote? Seeing none, that takes us on to item 6, approval of the minutes. Can I get a motion to approve A and B, please?
Move to approve the meeting minutes of March 16th, 2026, Committee of the Whole minutes, and March 16th, 2026, regular meeting minutes.
Second.
Second.
So moved and seconded twice. Other than the amendment that was discussed during, is that housekeeping, Madam Clerk?
That's housekeeping, and I've noted it before you sign it tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Any other adjustments to the minutes or meeting of the whole? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Approval of the minutes, Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mr. Claus,
Yes.
Ms. Rolfe,
Yeah.
Mr. Brandt,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
and Mayor Church.
Yes. Would anyone like to change their vote? Okay, moving on. Item 7, communications from the mayor. Attended the FAST planning policy meeting where the MPO, that's the Metropolitan Planning Organization boundary, was discussed. We also approved locations for the EV chargers throughout the borough for the first round, where they're going to be designed for future construction. There was some discussion on the Chino Riverwalk project, Section 3, which is the small piece of Alaska Railroad land that sits opposite the river of Pioneer Park. I attended and presented challenge coins to 5 students chosen from around the state on military installations as part of Military of the Youth for 2026. Sponsored by Boys and Girls Club. They were here in North Pole, and Eielson was chosen for their state championship competition this year. I would like to congratulate Lily Ruth Hall. She's from Coast Guard Base Kodiak as the state of Alaska representative, and mention our own Eielson youth rep Haley for a job well done. She was the youngest representative from across the state. She did a fine job. And it's very exciting watching the military youth get out there and talk about what really gets them excited and the things that they want to see done. Pretty amazing. I attended the change of command ceremony, which transferred powers from Sergeant Major Franco to Sergeant Major Bingham at Fort Wainwright. Look forward to working with him over the next 18 months or so. Tim and I, along with the borough mayor and a couple of people from Parks and Rec, I guess one person from Park and Rec and a neighboring citizen, met about the Fifth Avenue park plans that we have right down here on Fifth Avenue. They are looking at redoing that park and making it ADA compliant, improving parking, which would include up to 10 plus spots, improve drainage, and add additional playground equipment there, which I think would be great. In that meeting, we also talked about moving the North Pole pole, where people take pictures of that there at Fifth Avenue Park, back into the park so they have somewhere safe to remove themselves from the road. Thank you for putting that up, Emily. If you wouldn't mind scrolling maybe up or down, wherever the plan is. I think it's page 10. Maybe? Nope. Sorry.
12 through 17 or what?
Is it? Okay. We're getting there. So that's the Fifth Avenue Park there in yellow that you can see. And then if you scroll down, there's sort of a small design as to what they would like to do to add parking in there, blaze some of that out, level it out, improve drainage. They are, I think, going to leave the flower box out front and the flag and the lights, but they'll move the pole back into the park. And that'll be ADA compliant. And then they're talking about redoing the nature trail that goes all the way around the backside of that park, which ties into Beaver Springs Trail and also ties into the backside of Santa Claus House. I have heard rumors that there are assembly members who are wanting to nix this project. It's about $1.8 million to do this project. There has been some discussion about assembly members who want to cancel that and move this to other places. If you are interested in upgrading Fifth Avenue Park, now is your time to write in. They are going to have a meeting April 18th, which is a Saturday. The assembly is going to gather and discuss this. They are not taking any sort of public comment making these decisions on our budget. So if it's something you support or don't support, the assembly needs to hear from you. So please write that letter. Okay, for your calendars, other events that are happening in the area. Tomorrow at the Community Baptist Church, I believe that's the one on the corner of Marigold and Badger Road. They are going to talk about the PD Nordale roundabouts from 5 to 7 p.m. If you're for it, if you're against it, they're having an open house. Show up. Make your voices heard. This is their chance for public comment. At Fast Planning, the comments were mixed on it, and the state feels like it's super important to push forward with that plan. So whether you support it or oppose it, get down there tomorrow and take care of that. And that's 5 to 7 at the Community Baptist Church. April 9th is the month of the military child per the state, and April 9th is Purple Up Day to support military kids. So I encourage you, April 9th, to wear your purple, make it happen, get out there. And then April 25th at Pioneer Park, they're doing a celebration for Month of the Military Child. I have a flyer here. It is Retiree Appreciation Day, April 25th from 9 to 2 at Fort Wainwright. They are inviting any military member who is retired. They'll have talks about benefits, what you can and can't do, what you should be doing that you might not know about. They're opening up the DFAC for lunch for an hour, so you can go out and get a less than $8 lunch out at the DFAC at Fort Wainwright. And they'll have a couple of speakers there from 9 to 11 talking about Veterans Affairs. This afternoon, Tim and I went down to the DEC. They are looking at splitting the non-attainment area from Fairbanks away from North Pole. And there's maps that are out about that. I don't know. I have a flyer here, but if you'd like to take a look at that. I don't know yet, and we talked about it a little this afternoon about how that's going to affect the city, how it's going to affect the borough, all of the changes that may come from that. We really don't know yet. It's too early to know exactly how that's going to lay out, but splitting off from Fairbanks, allowing Fairbanks to be inside of attainment because they have been for the last 2 years while North Pole has not. Okay, I think that's it for me. Oh, hold on a second. North Pole High School fast pitch softball dropped off a flyer. If anybody would like to donate to North Pole High School fast pitch softball, they are looking for sponsorships for the 2025, 2026 season. So get out there and make it happen. If you want the flyer, I can send it to you. You can have this one here. That's it for me. I'll take council member questions of the mayor if there are any.
I do have one.
Please, Mr. Schuster.
I think one of the first or second things mentioned was they decided on the EV charging stations. Were any selected in North Pole?
Yes, Three Bears is a location that's selected to be designed, and the North Pole Library over by the high school. You bet. Please, Councilman Brandt.
What happened to the one that we were going to have for the city over by the old water treatment plant?
So it was suggested by the fast planner down there, when they scored those programs, that wasn't something that they wanted to do. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Communications from department heads. Madam Clerk, would you like to start?
I don't have a formal report this evening, other than if anybody's having issues with their email, we are working on, as we have been working on for several months, going to a .gov. So if you're having issues, Alaska Connect knows that there are issues. They will be cleaned up. If you have continued issues, reach out to Alaska Connect. But we are going to a .gov from a .org. That'll help with security. It'll help with grant funding. We were strongly advised to go to a .gov. Chief is better with the technical terminology, but we were strongly advised to go with a .gov. What's the word I'm looking for? Yeah. Anyways, if you're having continued issues, you can reach out to me or Alaska Connect. They should be cleared up relatively soon, but it's in the name of security, and if it seems fishy, it's all on the up and up. We've been working on it, I think, for close to a year now.
Questions of the clerk? Please, Councilman Brandt.
So, well, first of all, I reached out to you. I have been having problems. I haven't been able to log into my email for quite some time. You said we're switching to a .gov from a .org. But that's only our email addresses. That's not our website. Is that correct?
I believe everything is going to transfer over to a .gov account,
Okay. So our website currently is a .com
correct?
and our emails are a .org. And so all of those will be .gov at some point.
That is what we have been working on. The way things were set up before some of us got here were set up beyond our control. We're working to streamline it to have everything be a .gov for security purposes. But I think even as Trish is handing the reins over to Will, .gov is just considered a higher form of security than .org or .com.
We haven't started implementing any changes to the website yet, Councilman Brandt. It's just the emails that are changing to the .gov at this time.
I do have a
Yeah,
quick follow-up
please.
on that.
Councilman Schuster.
Will the .org email still receive emails?
Yes, those will still go through. I think North Pole used to have an old North Pole at Alaska some. Tricia still receives those emails, so we will still receive all of the emails. I think right now it's just high volume, and so the connectivity isn't on the superhighway, but we will still receive all of our old emails. And the new emails should be populating relatively soon. I think today they were working hard with City Hall, and they have the police and fire scheduled later this week. We should be on full burn, for lack of a relatively soon. Yeah, don't tell Chief Heineken I said that.
Guess one more follow-up. Chief, does that mean everybody needs new business cards and no?
Yes, but since it will still forward, I'll just buy them as they run out of their old ones.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. Who would like to go next? Chief, Director Glidden? Should we introduce our new CFO since he's in front? Will, take the mic. Make it happen. Introduce yourself. That'd be great.
Good evening, Council. My name's Will, working for about 3 days now and ready to present whatever you got. No, been living here in Fairbanks for about 15 years, worked in public accounting for just almost 9. And then I worked as a CFO for a private company in Fairbanks for 3 years. And I'm looking forward to the opportunity to be part of this team and help keep the city's finances secure. And yeah, any questions, I'll be here. So, yep.
How are we doing with the audit?
Working through the audit, working with Tricia yesterday to square up some policies on new ways of documenting procurement for the CFR guidance for looking up suspended and debarred last year's audit. Monitor CIP throughout the year. Oh, yep, working with Tricia to look over to create policies for the SAM.gov for the CFR for the audit from last year so that we can start on a good foot with this audit. And then also addressing how to go about just yearly monitoring for construction in progress so that we can make sure that restatement is something of the past. And yeah, I have quite a bit of audit experience, so I'm looking forward to helping you guys out.
Well, welcome. We're glad you're here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Will? Hey, Chief?
Not a big update. Good to see all of you, by the way. Sure is nice to have a little bit more warmth in our lives outside. Things are going well at the police department, and did see a bit of a, the stats haven't been quite what they were last year, which is good because of the extreme cold. It did tend to depress some of the stuff we normally see this time of year, and that has stayed consistent through this month as well. So we're, a few calls shy or really close to what we were looking at last year. So not any major increases regarding part 1 or part 2 crimes or traffic issues. thus far. Currently, we have Public Works finishing up a speed radar trailer that they're actually building for us. Two of the speed signs that we had, we're incorporating into that. They're going to run off a couple batteries and be able to be moved around the city if we have a trouble spot. The trailer can be, you've seen them, I'm sure, in town, the radar trailers that the police have. So we will have something similar we can deploy around the city this summer. That's fairly exciting. Our recruit is doing well. He's transitioned into second phase, so his previous experience is serving him very well. And then we've also had a really good community response up to this point for our canine program. Just as an update, we've brought in $39,000 so far, which is pretty good for about 2 months of work. A lot of that has come from businesses in the North Pole area that are very excited to be a part of the program. So I'll keep you updated on that and continue to bring updates. We have made a deposit on a dog, and we do have dates in June for when the handler is going to go receive that training and actually do the dog selection. So that is clipping along very well. I did have an opportunity to work with or communicate with Ship Alaska here in town. Councilman Brandt was nice enough to connect us. She's looking to do some administrative work, and at the police department, we're seeing if there's any way we can potentially help her with that, if it's something we can do. That's all I have for now. I'll take any questions that you might have. Sir.
Councilman Williams.
K-9 trailer, how much is that total gonna cost us? You know, putting it into the car?
You say canine trailer?
Yeah, for the K-9 part.
You mean the cage?
Yes.
Oh, the cage is about $4,000. So that's going to be paid for with canine donations that have come in. It's about $4,000.
Have that already out there, right? You see, we had 39,000.
We've had $39,000 in donations come in. Yes, we do have the money currently donated to pay for that.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Chief. Director Glidden.
Going. So for utilities, the effluent discharge project, we're making some good progress. We just finished up the winter data collection where we had to drill some holes in the river while it was still frozen and get some flow and some depths. And that was fantastic news. It looks like this location is going to be what we want. So that's really exciting. The current estimates, if we start construction for that, will be $3.7 million. The schedule right now is that we'll have the new permit application submitted in November. And if we can get the SRF loan approved in October, then we could start the construction of the effluent discharge the summer of 2027. So that's huge. We'd be happy about that. So the sludge removal project, which is part of this, we should be able to put out to bid in the next couple of months because we're trying to get that removed before, right before winter, to help it freeze quickly and there be less off-gassing and smells. So on this last week, Tricia, Will, and I, we were able to get $164,471 reimbursed on Friday. That money is actually in our accounts now. It's not a grant that eventually is going to come around. We actually got that money, so that's pretty exciting. For Public Works, we are starting to hire our summer employees, summer hires. So if anybody knows anybody that is looking for a good summer job, we've got that posted online. And we'd like you to apply before April 24th. Public Works, we just bought a new 3-inch trash pump for helping move some of the snow melt this summer. Hopefully we'll be able to help keep the water flowing where it should be. So through FAST, this year's road resurfacing construction projects will be the East 4th Avenue resurfacing, which is that small road right next to the Terry Miller Park, in between the bank and Terry Miller Park. So that's going to happen this summer. The North Pole High School Boulevard, there's a really big crack in the road up by the high school, and that's going to get resurfaced this summer. And the approach to the Duce Bridge is going to get resurfaced supposedly this summer. So that's the 3 construction projects that we're going to get through FAST this summer. The Cary Way extension, the 8th Avenue walking path resurface, and the Old Richardson pedestrian crossing is all going to be pushed to the 2027 construction year because they recently added some work to the Trainer Gate intersection there, which pushed everything from the 26 year into the 27. So, but those projects are still on the list. They're just not going to happen this summer. And we're going to start working on the 27 list. If anybody's got a road they'd like to get resurfaced or a walking path they'd like to get resurfaced, just let me know. And we can get that on the list. Fast Planning also has created, this is the first time, a transportation grant. And it's not federally funded. It's through FAST, our local FAST people. So it's basically a ask and give. There's not really a long drawn out process. They're small grants up to $5,000 per project, but it's for any nonprofit organization or anybody working with a nonprofit organization for transportation related things. So like the examples that they gave was a school teacher wanting to get bicycle helmets for their class, or, wanting to get reflective vests for people walking, or anything transportation related, putting in bicycle lock stations around town, or anything like that. It's their website. It's fastplanning.us/keepup/grants. If you want to apply for that, it's this whole month of April. This is the first year they're doing it. So if we get a lot of people interested and it works out, then they'd like to do it again. So that's pretty exciting. So this is not really an update. It's kind of more of a question. The utilities had a flood in a resident's basement, and we've got our insurance is on board and taking care of it. But the contractor that wants to, or that is going to do the work, requires a 50% down payment to start the work. And that 50% deposit is above our ability to grant without coming to council. So currently we're going to have to not allow the work to be done until the 20th, unless, I don't know if anybody's got any idea of how we could allow the mayor to authorize $25,000 as a down payment. In the code, it talks about if it's an emergency, the mayor can approve more than $24,000, but I don't know if you guys would consider it an emergency. A sewer backing up in a resident's basement, and the contractor that's doing the work has in there quote that there is black mold. So waiting 3 or 4 more weeks to get started on this project, to me, sounds like a health or safety emergency, but I don't know if you guys have any thoughts or opinions.
Tim,
Please, go ahead.
that's to somebody's house, right?
Yes.
Okay, please, Councilman Schuster.
Uh, Explain that a little further. So our insurance is covering it, but we need to pay a down payment?
Right. So to get the work to start, the contractors need 50% down payment. The insurance is going to reimburse us.
Did we select this contractor or did the homeowner?
Homeowner did, and the insurance has already approved the quote.
What kind of materials do they have that warrant for a cleanup that warrant 50% up front?
I believe it's 8 doors and 100 feet of baseboard. It's a 900 square foot basement, and they're gonna need sheetrock and I don't know.
So it seems to me like they could do remediation to solve the current problem without us getting too much more involved to
So we've already had.
house is safe and livable, and then the new work can start when insurance.
Right, so theoretically, it's already been remediated. It's been pumped out and dried out. They just haven't cut the sheetrock back where the mold has started behind the sheetrock. So theoretically, they could start, but the insurance isn't gonna pay until it's paid, right? It's a reimbursement. So at some point, we're gonna theoretically have to make this payment. It's just, is it now or later?
And the insurance will reimburse the city.
Yes.
Councilman Brandt, do you have a question?
So this is something that is our responsibility because it's something that the utility, it was on the utilities end that the problem occurred.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, we're going to be reimbursed. It doesn't matter if we approve it now or later. And I don't want these people living in, those kind of conditions, just waiting on us to approve this in a couple of weeks. So if we can find a workaround, if maybe they'll take $20,000 down instead of 25, then they can get started tomorrow. So.
Right.
Councilman Schuster.
I just have one more follow-up, and I agree with Councilman Brandt, but do we have a contract from this contractor?
We personally know.
My concern would be that we pay a deposit and then the contractor doesn't show or something like that, and we're involved in.
So we would pay the contractor and then submit that invoice to our insurance, and we would be reimbursed immediately. So I don't believe that we're taking on any responsibility aside from a couple of days or a week of waiting to check back. My understanding of the process.
Yeah, Councilman Brandt.
So again, I would just recommend, because of our spending limits, if we can get them to start the process for less than $24,000, then that would be the fastest way to get this going. Anyway, I do have a question about the effluent discharge. Have we got permissions yet from the Corps of Engineers to go through the dike at that point?
Don't have anything in writing, but we have talked to, yes, every landowner that we would have to go through their land, and they're all
Have we approached the Corps yet about
right. The Corps of
penetrating
Engineers,
the dike there?
borough, and I think the state might have. I think it's 3 government agencies that we're going to have to get easements, and all 3 of them are okay with the process.
Okay.
Yeah, please. Councilwoman Rolfe.
What was the age requirement for the summer hires that you guys are starting?
18 currently. We were talking about that. We don't know why it's 18. I don't know if it's an insurance thing or if it's state law, but I haven't looked into it, but currently it's 18.
Okay. Any other questions for,
It would be a full-time position is my thought of why 18.
please, Councilman Williams?
So can we go ahead and vote on that $20,000 today so we can get some progress on that?
We can't, I'm sorry, we can't do that unless it's on the agenda or 4 council members bring that forth prior to agenda approval.
Right, it wasn't a question of vote. It was kind of like advice on how I should move forward that isn't gonna seem like I'm trying to do something underhanded or out there. Try to happen.
Okay, any other questions for Director Glidden? Did we have a borough representative who would like to give a report? Did we have a borough representative? All right, Councilwoman Rolfe.
Yeah, so I attended the Borough Assembly meeting. There were a few that appeared to talk on items not on the agenda, and they were there to talk about issues with the renaming of Pioneer Park to Alaska Land. That actually will appear back in front of the Assembly, not at the meeting this week, but in 2 weeks. It'll appear back on the agenda to be up for discussion then. So they had told them they can come back then as well to talk about it. So that'll officially come back in front of them. There are a couple of ordinances that appeared on the agenda. One was to put up some additional borough land for sale that appears on the Chattanooga that passed. So that will go up. There's several different ways. There'll be a bid, there'll be a lottery system. And so those will go up for sale later this year. Then there was the second ordinance that was up, which would add an additional $200,000 to the cleanup fund that was used this last year to clean up the property over by Tick Brown Elementary. That one was cleaned up. They said there's another property that they're in current litigation on that will likely get approved for cleanup this year, which was one of the reasons they were looking to add funds to that. That passed as well. So I would look for that likely happening later this summer based on the timeframe they were giving. As you notice, we don't have a borough representative from the Assembly here tonight. They're actually in budget workshops. Those started tonight. So all the Assembly members are in budget workshops for them tonight. And then the other items that were up last Tuesday were 4 resolutions. One was to continue the lease with UAF. It got kind of contentious based on the wording that was in the resolution because it was approved to be above market rate. But the borough attorney, Ms. Dolan, talked about they don't anticipate that actually going above market rate, but that was there as a protection because it could potentially get above that. But they did pass that resolution to continue that lease for the recycling center. There were 2 resolutions to support different bills before the legislature. The first one was to return to the defined benefits plan for teachers. That one passed. And the second was dealing with changes in the language of guardianships to make it conform with giving greater protections to guardians, to those who people are seeking guardianships over. Both adults and children. That passed as well. And then the final resolution was adopting of the FNSB Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan, and that one passed as well. That was pretty much it. That was in front of the Assembly. But like I said, in 2 weeks, so not their next meeting, but the meeting after that, they'll have the ordinance to rename Pioneer Park to Alaska Land back in front of them. It went through the Parks Commission. Now it's back in front of the Assembly.
All right, thank you for that report. Any questions for our borough representative? Great, thank you for that. That brings us on to item 10, ongoing reports, or sorry, project reports. We don't have any. Brings us on to item 11, unfinished business. Can I get a motion, please, to adopt?
Motion to adopt ordinance 2026-02, first budget amendment.
Second.
So moved and seconded. This takes us on to a staff report. Director Glidden, would you like to give a staff report? No, it's a second read through, so.
So we've had the snow removed 13 times this year. So we have blown our entire snow removal budget. So I think we're good with plowing for the spring, but that leaves us with nothing for this coming November and December. So I looked at last year's and we plowed 4 times before January. So that's what $60,000 if we assume that it's going to cost the same next year or later this year that it did earlier this year, then that's what that's for. And so hauling snow is a different expense. Last year it cost around $20,000 to haul snow off. So that's what makes the 80,000.
Okay, thank you, Director Glidden. And then for the $3,000 professional services out of the HR, Madam Clerk, would you like to take that on?
Sure. We budgeted for ease for January through March. Tyler will be taking over. The connecting of Tyler is taking longer. I think there was some budget talks to maybe make Tyler less expensive. Anyways, it's taken longer to get Tyler up and running. And so this pays for 3 more months of ease, which is the onboarding system. So when new employees sign up, they type their information in and populates what kind of insurance they want. Tyler will be more hands-on here in office, but we have a full-time HR and she's been well-trained on Tyler, so we can drop the expense of ease, but we have to make the transition before we can drop it.
Thank you for that. Is there anybody signed up, Madam Clerk, online to give public testimony for this item?
I have nobody signed up for this ordinance.
Is there anybody in the room who would like to speak to this? Okay, that brings us on to council discussion. Any council discussion? Pretty cut and dry. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
On ordinance 2026-02, the first budget amendment, Ms. Rolfe,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mr. Brandt,
Yes.
Mr. Claus,
Yes.
Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
and Mayor Church.
Yes. Would anyone like to change their vote?
That passed with 7 yeses.
Thank you. That brings us on to item 12A, ordinance 2026-03, second budget amendment. Can I get a motion, please, to introduce?
Move to introduce ordinance 2026-03, second budget amendment.
Second.
So moved and seconded. Director Glidden, would you like to give a staff report on this as well?
So this is just to update the utilities budget to pay for the projects that we have, construction and design projects that we have for this year, and to allow us to have money to repair and replace equipment that is currently at the end of its life.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Do we have anyone signed up for public testimony on this?
I have nobody signed up for this ordinance.
Anyone in the room like to give public testimony? Brings us on to council discussion. Do we have any discussion or questions for Director Glidden about this ordinance? Okay, seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
On ordinance 2026-03, the second budget amendment, Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mr. Brandt,
Yes.
Mr. Claus,
Yes.
Ms. Rolfe,
Yes.
Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
Mayor Church.
Yes. Would anyone like to change their vote?
That passed with 7 yeses.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. That brings us on to resolution 2026-05. Can I get a motion, please, to adopt?
Motion to adopt resolution 2026-05, a resolution of the North Pole City Council urging the state legislature to reject proposals for a statewide sales tax.
Second skips.
So moved and seconded. Councilwoman Rolfe, would you mind giving a staff report on this? Or if you would prefer Jordan Schuster or Councilman Claus, it's up to you. You guys sponsored this resolution.
I can give that. So this resolution is based on the outrolling by Governor Dunleavy to initiate a statewide sales tax. The sales tax would be above whatever sales tax currently is in place for a city or borough that has them. This is just a resolution urging the legislature to reject that. There are several other ways that the state can raise money, and sales tax is one of the few areas that's left just to cities and boroughs. And this is us requesting that they basically go about raising taxes or gaining additional funds for the legislature in a different way.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there anybody signed up online to give public testimony?
I have nobody signed up online.
Is there anybody in the room who would like to give public testimony on this? Okay, that brings us to council discussion. No discussion. Okay, I would like to just chime in with a couple things here. Thank you for putting this together. As one of the 3 entities here in the borough that actually pays sales tax, it's interesting that the other 2 beat us to this resolution. So thank you for putting that together. I do maybe want to look at line 36 and the whereas the state of Alaska hasn't necessarily failed to provide timely community assistance programs, at least not to the city of North Pole. Just last year, we received $84,000 worth of funding. Prior to that, we received the COVID CARES funds, which came through the state. Prior to that, Santa's Senior Center over on Fifth Avenue was a lot of this local government funding and community assistance money that came from the state that helped fix up the old firehouse so the Santa Senior Center can have somewhere to be. I don't necessarily agree with that line, and I'm okay with leaving it. I just wanted to give some history behind that. I don't necessarily agree with that, but it's a council decision. And then on line 27, and that paragraph, 100 plus communities in the state of Alaska have sales tax. 1%, 3%, 5%, 7.75%. And the state taking over the sales tax program would actually reduce the amount of overall employees that each one of the small communities would have to have by handling at a state level. Instead of every single community having to hire their own sales tax person, in our community, it would save us at least a position, which might or might not be worth it. Just my 2 cents.
And I understand that. I guess my response to that is that nothing in this shows us what the state's going to charge us, whether they'll charge a flat fee, will they charge a percentage. It could cost the city. My estimate is it would end up costing the city more, not less than what we pay our one employee that we use to collect it. It would reduce our oversight that we have on businesses that are behind in collection. We can see that easier having an employee present here that's watching that versus the state who's watching, as you stated, 100 plus communities. As to the language that you had talked about in section 36, I'll admit I was not the original drafter of this. I took this mostly from what the city of Fairbanks first passed. That was drafted and reviewed by Jerry Cleworth. I did speak to him after he brought it forward to city council in Fairbanks and all the research that he had done on this in creating this resolution, and felt comfortable with his whereases based on my review of it as well. But he definitely did a much more in-depth review of the plan that's put forward than I did.
Councilman Brandt.
So to what she's speaking of, it just says that they failed to timely provide the governments with their portions. And so I think what this is getting at is that, they can collect the sales tax from us and, not give it to us for months and months and months. And then in the meantime, we need that money. So it just says in a timely manner, not that we are not receiving funds from the state.
Yeah, please, Councilman Schuster.
And just one more follow-up from that line, 27 through 30, to just add on what Councilwoman Rolfe said, I prefer it be a local position than somebody down in Juneau as well.
Okay, sounds good. Any further council discussion on this? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
On Resolution 2026-05, urging the state legislature to reject proposals for a statewide sales tax. Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Brandt,
Yes.
Ms. Rolfe,
Yes.
Mr. Skips, Mr. Claus, Mayor Turch.
Yes. Would anyone like to change their vote?
That passed with 7 yeses.
Okay, that brings us on to item C. Could I get a motion, please, to approve?
Request to approve the 2026 K-9 patrol vehicle purchase.
Second.
So moved and seconded. That brings us to staff report. Chief?
Sir, so as as I discussed during the meeting of the whole, this is a request to purchase one patrol vehicle for 2026. I discussed at that time, my goal is to keep the fleet as stable as possible, both operationally and also fiscally, to ensure that our cars are getting a good service life, but also not having a high average mileage across the entire fleet. And really that requires 2 cars a year in order to stabilize the fleet. I recognize that things are difficult financially, and so I'm requesting just 1 car this year that is intended to be outfitted for the K-9 that should be here this summer. To reiterate, that cage will be paid for out of donations, so we're not approving anything over what a normal patrol car would cost that I might order on any particular year. This was in the budget, was approved. Two vehicles actually were approved for $160,000. And I rolled money from 2025 into our vehicle fleet fund, which currently has well over what's needed to pay for this one patrol car. In some of the information I provided, it gives information regarding the need to look long-term at a vehicle fleet and to consider idle miles as part of the overall wear and tear to a police vehicle. You can see if you looked at the table that some of our cars have thousands of idle miles on them, and that drives up the total wear and tear on that car. As one who has been in a patrol car that has broken down en route to a call, I do not want the state of our fleet to ever reach a point where that is a possibility. In discussions with a council member this last week, I let him know that the police car is actually far more crucial than the gun. Because I've relied on my gun hundreds of times in my career, but I've relied on my car thousands upon thousands of times. And it's really the most important piece of police equipment we have. And so with us working by ourselves so frequently, if one were to break down, as has happened in the past, that would potentially be disastrous. And so I'm asking council to look at the statistics and numbers and facts and testimony that I've provided and to consider what would be the best way to balance our operational effectiveness while also controlling increasing costs over the years. So we never get to a point where we're forced to purchase 2 or 3 cars or 4 cars in a year because they are 8 to 10 years old and breaking down significantly. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about the documents and numbers that you provided. That's my request to y'all tonight.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate it. Calls for public testimony. Do we have anybody signed up online for public testimony?
I have nobody signed up online.
Anyone in the room like to give public testimony? Please come forward, state your name and your area of residence, please.
My name's Adam Rolfe. I live in Lake Drive. I just had a few questions. Real quick, I assume the canine patrol officer already has a vehicle. He would get this new one. Would his current one that he has now go into the fleet, and then one of the fleet ones get retired or sold, or however that works?
Actually, you're not. It is,
Point of order. Per North Pole Charter, section 2.12.105, section H says, I am permitted to ask council members, the mayor, and any city staff questions.
yeah, you certainly can ask, and then he
answer
can
back.
choose to answer.
He doesn't have to.
Correct.
Yes, to answer your first question, the officer's car that he's currently driving would remain part of the fleet and would be reassigned to somebody else.
Would one of the higher mileage fleet vehicles be sold off or retired?
I would love to be able to sell off a couple of the higher ones. Yeah, those kind of depend on replacing the bottom end.
Right, okay. And then is the part of the door lock mechanism that automatically opens the door, is that part of the cage that is being paid for by the donations?
Yes, that's all a package. It has electronics in there that monitors the temperature and will actually release the animal if it were to get to a life-threatening level.
In one of your previous statements, I think it was 2 meetings ago, I think you mentioned that the back of the police car would be retrofitted for seats as well. Is that still the case?
Yeah, we're doing a 1/3, 2/3. With us working alone, we can't just allocate the entire back because we got to be able to carry a person as well. So yes, 1/3 would be prisoner compartment, and then 2/3 would be canine cage.
And then, like in your proposal here, I didn't notice, is this the previous quote from the 2 meetings ago?
It's the same price
Okay.
still, yeah.
Okay. All right, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to give public testimony this evening? Okay, that brings us on to council discussion. Please, Councilman Claus.
There, so Chief, does that preclude, if that vehicle, if the handler, once we have a handler, if that handler is out of service or the dog is out of service, does that preclude another officer from using that particular vehicle?
No, that's why we're getting the 1/3, 2/3, because we never put more than one person in the back of a car anyway for multiple reasons. So larger agencies can devote that whole back seat to just canine, and they can call a second officer to come pick up a prisoner. We can't do that. So the idea is that it would be, and that's area wide, all the local canines have always had that capability where they can also carry an individual. So yes, it could be used for regular and will be used for regular patrol. The handler will be working and responding to calls like he is now, just like any other officer.
And follow-up question?
Please.
So if this unit's responding to an out-of-city call by some other agency, for example, is this unit going to be out of service for that entire time, or is another officer allowed to use that vehicle in an emergency? If the dog is occupied somewhere out in the field doing their whatever it is, and that car is going to be held up for 2 or 3 hours, maybe 4 hours at some location. Is that car also available for other calls while the handler and the dog are out doing their thing out in the community?
I mean, theoretically, but kind of what you're suggesting would be leaving the handler in the field without the car. So, I mean, in an emergency, any of us could use another car theoretically. In every situation I've ever worked alongside a canine, it's not a super protracted thing. The longest may be an hour and a half on a long track of a suspect that's fleeing a vehicle. But all of us can interchangeably use our equipment. I just don't want to say it would necessarily be a good thing to take the guy's car while he's out in the field. Depending on the situation, because he may need to come back to that thing in a hurry and relocate somewhere else and start a new track. There's some other like tactical considerations there too.
I got it. Thank you. So when I was reading that line in the in our agenda, it just said 2026 K9 patrol vehicle. So that's what kind of threw me off with that. So I'm presuming it's a patrol vehicle that happens to accommodate the K9.
Yes, it is fully functional for all patrol duties, but it is enhanced with the ability to also carry a K9. We are not losing any bit of functionality from it at all.
Thank you.
Chief, what's the price difference between this K9 unit and a regular vehicle?
About
Approximately.
$4,000 approximately.
Okay. If this K9 vehicle breaks down, as sometimes vehicles do, or gets into an accident, what steps do we have in place to allow that officer and that K9 to go and do their job and continue in another vehicle?
That's a good question. We've actually posed that question to a couple other local agencies, and they have come up with some rather creative workarounds. Now, I mention that not to say that is anything we would want to do long term or would be ideal, but one agency actually repurposed another fleet vehicle for that purpose and had their public works department essentially build a temporary, it's actually wooden compartment in the back for temporary use while that took place. So we would have to pivot for sure if the car got in an accident or something like that. But I can say there is a thought process already to make sure that we don't lose the functionality of the canine if that were to occur. And then in my experience, we go through the insurance process with the car and ideally get it repaired or replaced.
Thank you, Chief. Other questions? Please, Councilman Claus.
Thank you. Another question. If, for instance, if for some reason the officer is either disabled or on vacation or in training or something like that, and the K9's not available to the city of North Pole or other agencies to respond, what can any other officer just go ahead and use that unit?
They could certainly use the car. Yeah. Once the canine is bonded and trained with that handler, we do want to keep those two working together and not just separate them. But the car certainly could be utilized.
Thank you.
Councilman Brandt.
I just want to talk a little bit about this idle hours. Idling doesn't put any wear and tear on any part of the car other than the engine. You know, the front end, the transmission, the brakes, the suspension, the tires, nothing. So when you're saying the effective mileage of these cars is hundreds of thousands of miles because of that idling time, I don't agree with that. If the engine were to blow because of idling time, these cars cost us, you know, fully equipped, $100,000. A brand new motor for the car that you spec'd out, the crate motor is about $4,000, and installation would be right around $5,000. So for less than $10,000, we could put a brand new engine in a $100,000 car and get another, you know, a lot more life out of it. So if you're saying that the idling time is on a 50,000 mile car, it needs to be replaced because of the idling time. I don't agree with that. And then you said that, currently we're spending about $14,000 a year in maintenance. And if we allow the fleet to reach 85 to 100,000 miles, that would go up to $30,000 a year. So for $14,000 a year more, that's, for the 19 vehicles or whatever, that's less than $1,000 per vehicle, rather than spending $200,000 a year to buy new vehicles. If it costs us a couple $1,000s more a year in maintenance, I think that's better use of taxpayers' money, excuse me. And I contacted Fairbanks. I didn't contact, Seattle or New York or even Anchorage. I contacted, Fairbanks, our neighbor 15 miles from here. And their mechanic foreman says that they don't look at replacing their police vehicles till they have at least 100 to 120,000 miles on them. So when you're saying you're wanting to replace these at, 40, 50,000 miles, I think we need to be getting a lot more out of our police cars.
I appreciate what you're sharing. There's a couple things I would add to the overall mix of what you're saying. Just to clarify once again, I'm not looking to replace any patrol cars when they reach a mileage of 50,000. We are actually replacing them when they get to around 100 and or when the cost to repair them exceeds what it would cost when it's no longer worth it to continue to repair them. At about 80,000 miles, give or take, we rotate them into, rather than being specifically assigned to an officer, they're used as a hot seat car. They're still used regularly during field training while other cars are down for repairs. They're used all the time, but they are moved into that category for the next 80 up to, again, 100,000 or so on the odometer when that break-even point is no longer worth it. So in no context am I saying when that car gets to 50,000 miles, we're replacing it. That is not happening. That would be highly irresponsible because that car has still another 50,000 miles or so left on the odometer, provided there's no accidents or anything like that of life left. As you see in the graphs, anytime you average something, you have stuff on both ends, low mileage and also very high mileage, and that's why I say we're looking for an average. We have to look at the entire fleet across the board. You mentioned a couple other aspects of that regarding replacing an engine. What was suggested was taking our entire fleet and moving it to an average of 80 to 100,000, an average of 80 to 100,000. On the second graph I showed you exactly what that would look like. You'd have some closer to 300,000 because with an average, you're going to have that spread. So it's not as simple as we just replace an engine, because by the time those types of catastrophic failures are happening, and when an engine quits to the point that you have to replace it, that is a catastrophic failure. By then, the chassis and everything is 100,000 miles plus, because we've let it get to that point across the entire fleet. So I value the perspective and the opinion that you're bringing to this. I have to go with the numbers and with some of the quotes and things that I included in here. Testimony of our mechanic here at Expressway talking about the cars that he's working on. These are what go into my decision-making process on how these are ultimately what inform how I manage this fleet. So I hope that helps clarify some of those concerns.
Chief, in our budget talks, going back to the budget that we had this fall, you said earlier that you budgeted for 2 cars for this year. Is that correct, at $160,000?
I did, yes.
And during that discussion, I don't recall, but maybe you can help me remember, was any of this brought up during that discussion that and any one of us council would have an issue with you buying 2 cars during that budget discussion?
No, And in that discussion, I explicitly laid out my intent, which was to, rather than asking for the 160, I put it in the budget as an expenditure in 2026, but my intent always was, since we were down a position 2025, was to move that 2025 funding into our vehicle fleet fund so that I could accomplish the 2 vehicles for 2026 without asking for anything more than what had been budgeted in 2025. So that went through, we passed that and moved it into the fleet fund, and there's about $230,000 sitting in the fleet fund right now, and that was what was approved. And so I tried to be as, long vision and forthright and transparent in that as I could. And I generally will try to tell you exactly what I'm thinking and intending to do as far out as I can, because you all need to know that.
One more follow-up. So you said the difference between a regular vehicle and the K9 vehicle was about $4,000. Is that the $4,000 difference because of the auto launch and the cooling on the backside of that vehicle?
It's simply the enhancements to the cage. So rather than just a big open compartment back there with 2 seats for prisoners, you have the canine portion of the cage, and then yes, you have some significant electronics. It doesn't actively cool it, but it will roll the rear window down, and it will then eventually pop that rear door if it really gets that bad.
Okay. Thank you. Councilman Brandt.
So first of all, I wasn't suggesting putting a brand new motor in a car with 100,000 miles. I was saying if it has less than 50,000 and you're saying that it's gonna, the engine's gonna blow up because of the idling time, then it would be cheaper to put a new motor in it. And as far as averages go, the highest mileage car, every single officer has their own vehicle. The highest mileage car that we have currently that an officer is driving has 54,000 miles on it. It doesn't have 100,000 miles on it. It doesn't have 120,000 miles on it. And what I'm saying is, so my truck has 380,000 miles on it. So if I go buy a new truck, there's nothing wrong with it. It still drives. I'd love to have a new truck. If I go buy a new truck, now it's gonna,
What kind of truck is it?
it's a Silverado. So if I get a new truck, now the average is 190,000 miles because I have 2 trucks. Well, shoot, now I've got to get another truck because, the average is 190. To get it under 100,000, I need to buy 2 new trucks if I'm going to keep this old one. So the math doesn't, I understand what you're saying about averaging, but if we're keeping the older cars as backups and you're using that to say that we need to replace a car with 54,000 miles on it or buy a new car. So if we're going to retire one of these cars, the highest mileage one we have is 54,000 miles. And like I said, I contacted Fairbanks and they're getting 120,000 miles before they're looking at replacing their cars. So to me, I think that if these cars were only $40,000, $50,000, that's different, but they're costing us $100,000. So that's just my opinion.
Oh, I definitely respect that. Just to reiterate, we're not getting rid of them at 50, and they're not just set aside as, backups is accurate in a sense, but they are hot seat cars. They're cars that are used frequently when other cars are down or getting oil changes or in the shop or any number of things are happening. We'll have 2 or 3 cars down simultaneously for something, and then someone's FTOing field training on top of that, and now the lieutenant's giving up his car to add it to patrols to do a workaround with it. We're not getting rid of them that early. That would be incredibly foolish.
If we do buy a new vehicle, the highest mileage one that is currently being driven is 54,000 miles. So you're going to take that out of service and give it.
Oh,
No, you're going to put it into the fleet. You're not selling it. You're not getting rid of it. But then it's okay. That's fine.
Madam Clerk, could you scroll down to page 20, please, and show the actual odometers of our police vehicles there, so that those people who are watching can see what our actual mileage is on those vehicles that we have.
I would also say, remember, 2 is what is required to stabilize the fleet at any mileage. Without that, you experience growth. Exponential growth if you don't replace any, and slightly slower growth if you replace one. So we can stabilize the fleet anywhere. It's going to take 2 cars a year to do it. Otherwise, you're digging a hole that you're going to have to try to then come back from later. So the repair costs, again, I'm basing that number simply on the repair costs from the last 5 years, because I'm not going to just make up numbers. Those are the numbers I'm pulling from to say this higher mileage car generated this much, so I can project if all of the cars got to that point. This is the most conservative estimate of what it's going to cost, but that is looking at a fleet that's been balanced for the last 5 years. We've been doing what we need to do and keeping those mileages at the range where they need to be for the last 5 years. Two cars here, 1 car here, 2 cars here. That is going to be way more once all the cars are 80, 90, 100,000, because then stuff that's happened recently where the cars were under warranty and we did have an entire engine replaced in one of them under warranty, like $6,000 right there. Those types of repairs are going to start happening across the entire fleet because they're all up there, and none of them are going to be under warranty, and we won't be able to even project like we can now when it's going to happen. I can look at a car right now and I can say, this guy's been driving it for 5 years. It's about at this mileage. It's had this many repairs. You know what? It's a good opportunity to move it from active everyday use to hot seat use, right? I can plan that. Like that's something I can predict, and I can make the decision proactively to do that. You know what? If he's hot seating it and it blows up, it's not the same as if it was his car that he's driving all the time. When the whole fleet is high, I can't do that anymore because then it's reactionary. I'm just waiting for one of these 250,000 idle mile cars to have the issue it's going to have, and then I have to respond. And if that means I have to buy a whole nother car or 3 or 4 cars in 1 year, then that's, I don't want to ever bring that type of proposal to you where I say I lost 25% of my fleet because they're all at 270,000 miles. In 10 years, we're going to be paying more for cars than we are today. I want to make that slope as gradual as I possibly can for the city, and I want to keep the entire fleet where we're getting the most life out of them, but they're generating the least repair costs. And I'm telling you, I have seen it, and I have driven in that type of car I've seen it for over a decade. What we have worked to accomplish here in getting it to this, where we're getting rid of them at 100, that works. That is where we want to try to keep it. Sir.
Councilman Brandt.
What I'm trying to say is that your active use cars right now, the average is probably 20,000 because, I mean, you got 3 brand new cars in the last half of last year. The highest, like I said, the highest mileage one that is currently being driven assigned to an officer is 54,000. The next is 48 and the next one's 41. And then it goes way down from there. All I'm asking for is to increase the active use average miles before we start buying new vehicles. So I would like the active use, not putting the car into a fleet until it has 80,000 miles on it. But you're not, because right now the highest mileage car we have has 54,880 miles on it. So if we get a new car, that's the one that's going to be retired into fleet at only 54,000 miles. So what I'm saying is that if we can just increase the use that we're getting out of our active use cars before they go into fleet. Because what you're doing is you're taking these high mileage cars that, that you're keeping as backups, for lack of a better word, and you're using those to bring up the average odometer readings on the active use cars. And I understand what you're doing, and that's one way to look at it. But what I'm looking at is It's the daily actively used ones that are assigned to officers. I would like us to get some more miles out of those. At $100,000 apiece, I think we can get some more mileage out of these cars.
Councilman Schuster.
I have a couple questions, Chief. Based on Councilman Brandt's questions, is unit 338 in use, active?
Sorry, Chief, into the mic if you don't mind. I'm sorry.
No
Thank
worries.
you.
I don't want to tell you wrong. They're shuffling the trainee around between a couple of those older ones. So it's either being used for that or it is a hot seat.
Okay, how about,
If I may, real quick, I have a list here.
Sorry,
so-
please. He's in the middle of a follow-up.
yeah.
Thank you, Councilman
I
Brandt.
just have a couple more. 340, 341, and 345.
340, 341,
Yep,
45.
yep.
What? Those are all assigned to officers.
Okay. How many miles do you put on average a year?
Ooh, across the entire fleet, 12 to 15.
Okay,
Some officers drive more than others, so that's probably a good rough estimate.
Sorry, Councilman Schuster, into the mic.
do you foresee buying 3 to 4 vehicles next year?
No, my intent was to ask for 2 next year.
So that would push the average age into kind of what you're talking about on some of these vehicles, because, the one with 48, near 50 wouldn't get replaced this year, so that'd be at 65. And some of these other older ones would be at around 55 next year, and they're not all getting replaced, so that they would be closer to 70 before they're replaced.
Yeah, like I try to not get them into the hot seat. You try to let them go as long as you can, but there comes a point where you're going to start having those types of issues if they're still the one that's being driven every single day. So it's like any other closed loop system where you have wear and tear and stuff falls off one end and you're adding it into the other. That's really all we're doing is just adding the lower mileage in and trying to and the overall mileage is the important thing to look at because those are all actively used vehicles, even if they're not assigned to that officer where this one guy is driving it every day, it's still being driven regularly and taken on calls. It's still 100% being dependent on to get to locations just like any other car. So that's why I can't just say these 4 are hot seat ones. I won't consider those as part of the overall average because they're still being used and they still have probably 20,000 miles of good life left.
Good.
Yep.
If I was to make an amendment to get a second vehicle chief along with this, so that we had a backup K-9 unit, is it possible to have a full rear seat included in that so that if anything did happen with that second K-9 unit, we could pull that seat out, put the single in or the double in, and have that be a K-9 unit?
I appreciate the offer. I did include a quote from one of our upfitters specifically addressing, and I didn't even know this. I didn't consider all the wiring that has to be done for the hot and pop on the door. So it's not just unbolting some stuff like you can with a regular cage. You got to take the entire wiring harness apart to put the new thing in there. So that threw me for a loop a little bit. That's not the right way to do it at all. So honestly, what I would love is just to make sure that we have this car ready to go when the canine gets here this summer. And just for all of you to know, this is what it takes to keep the fleet stable. It's not me coming up with that. That's just what it takes. So I appreciate that, but it just wouldn't be a utility to have a backup canine car in that respect.
Understood. Thank you, Chief. Councilman Brandt.
So I appreciate what you're trying to do or what you're doing by trying to keep the fleet stable. All I'm asking for is, instead of looking at the overall mileage of the entire fleet, look at the overall mileage of the active daily driven cars. And then let's get 70 or 80,000 miles out of one of these cars. You know, if Fairbanks is getting 100 to 120 out of them, we can get 70 or 80 out of them. So I don't have a problem buying one or two more new cars next year. It's this year when the highest mileage car that we're currently driving has 54,000 miles on it. Next year it'll have 60, 65, 70,000. I don't have a problem replacing it at 70,000. I have a problem replacing it at 55,000. As far as a vehicle for the canine unit, we can take one of the three that we got in the last half of last year, one of the new vehicles, and retrofit that. I know you said that's not ideal, but it's going to be exactly the same as a new car. We just need to order the cage and all that stuff and have that put in. And as far as a backup, we can do exactly what you were saying, that the people that you talked to had to, work around, and our public works guys can make something like that and have it, ready to use for when that car is out of service.
Yeah, please.
I just have a comment. So with my experience being on the council, minus last year, 8 years back when Chief Dutra ran it, I've seen him go through the Crown Vics and then the Explorers and now the Dodges. I completely trusted his process he did to replace vehicles, and I completely trust Chief Smith with the way he's replacing vehicles. I don't want to sit here and have to micromanage. He's crunching the numbers. He knows what the cars do. He knows when he needs new cars. Because there's times in the past where they only got one vehicle. And then now, like this year, he was allowed to get two, but he's only getting one. So, but that's just my comment. Thank you.
No, thank you, Councilman Skips. I also agree that, if it was budgeted, it shouldn't be micromanaged at a council level, and we should trust our department heads to make their decisions. With that, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
I got one thing. When we, for this K-9 unit, all the insurance will be on that particular unit before it even goes on the street, right? All the insurance for the dog being in the vehicle?
The car will have insurance.
Okay.
And the dog will also have insurance.
Okay.
The dog will have insurance like any other officer, according to our insurance company.
He will be an officer of the city of North Pole.
You get a badge and everything?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Madam Clerk, without any further ado, please call the roll.
To council for the 2026 K-9 patrol vehicle purchase. Mr. Claus,
Yes.
Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
Ms. Rolfe,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mr. Brandt,
No.
Mayor Church.
Yes. Would anyone like to change their vote?
That passed with a 6 yes, 1 no's.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Since item D was postponed, that brings us on to item 13, council comments excluding the mayor.
Comments.
Where should we start this evening?
okay. This evening, we will start with Ms. Rolfe.
All right. I just want to take a moment to thank the North Pole Police Officer Illingsworth and the rest of the police department, along with volunteers in policing. Many may not know, but over the last 5 weeks, they've put on a class with the IDEA office here in North Pole. It was called Crime Busters, and they took students through the process of handcuffing and fingerprinting and how to track down a suspect. They let them explore one of their cars, and the students absolutely loved it. It was very well put together, and I think it was a great way for community interactions with the police department. And I know that Officer Illingsworth talked to the kids about safety as well at the last one, and to look for him on the streets of North Pole this summer because he'll be handing out ice cream coins. And so they were very excited by that. So I just wanted to say thank you for putting that on with in collaboration with IDEA. It was very well done.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Rolfe. Next is Mr. Claus.
Thank you. Now that the weather is changing, I hope it keeps changing for the better for us anyway. A lot more people are going to be outside walking around. So if you happen to be driving, please keep your eyes peeled for us pedestrians out there. You can see a lot of puddles and stuff too. So please don't splash us while you're going by if you can possibly avoid it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Claus. Mr. Schuster.
I don't have anything tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Schuster. Mr. Skips.
Yes, I just want to welcome to the city new CFO. Hope you're here for a long time. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Skips. Mr. Williams.
Yeah, I'd like to welcome Will. He'll be around for a while. And I know you won't get what an individual said, oh, I know you will not get bored because I will not let you get bored. You'll never have a slow day, especially when I find out something. Okay? You're here to take care of us. You are. Nobody else runs your shop. You run your shop. They come to you first. Okay? And I say that for a reason. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you have any problems, just tell me. I know how to stir the pot. Okay? Quite welcome. Oh, and also, Tim, your guys are doing excellent on this snow removal. Now, my only question is for all of us, you know, when you go around the corner, you got that big snow that you have to creep out and into the street. Everybody, please be careful with that. I almost got hit the other day, and it wasn't my fault. I just creeped in the street. That's all. Okay? Please be careful out there. And I don't know, we will have time to move any snow because people, if it's on their property, they have to take care of it. Am I right, Tim? Okay. All right. Let me see. What else could I talk about? Oh, everything else is going pretty good that I know of so far. They've got a military appreciation banquet coming up that individuals, if you can attend to it, try and go to it. It will be a fantastic function. Okay. That's it. Everybody have a nice day.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Brandt.
I have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. That concludes this agenda.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned at 8:34.
It's 8:35. Give me that other minute. I'm going to talk about this one.